Once upon a time, there was an American Jew called Raphael Bob Waksberg. Yes, that's not how he would pronounce the name, but I find that W sound in these old Jewish European names harder to say than the V sound, which is how it should be pronounced anyway, so indulge me. Anyway, he lived next door to a Jewish artist by the name of Lisa Hannawalt, or Hannawalt? I don't know. The two were childhood friends. He was writing, she was drawing, and as they grew up, they developed their styles and abilities, and eventually it merged in the insanely brilliant Netflix show, Bojack Horseman. Now I'll be honest with you, when it comes to Bojack, I'm definitely a fanboy. I place that show on a mantle the same height as The Sopranos, okay? I think it's one of the best shows ever made for television. It's funny as hell, it's smarter than most things you see, not just these days, but through the ages. As someone who has depression, I've never seen it and trauma being depicted so accurately anywhere else. And this is a fucking cartoon, okay? I love the way they blur the line between absurdity and the real world. I mean, the entire backdrop to the story is a universe where all animals are anthropomorphic but still behave like the animals that they are, which of course allows for both metaphors and some very silly slapstick comedy. And that's the thing about Bojack, it fools you. When you watch it for the first time, it looks like it's just a silly comedy about a washed-up actor from the 90s. But halfway through the first season, you find yourself going, what the fuck? This is some serious shit. When you get to the dreaded episode 11, and yes, through its run, fans have learned to fear episode 11 of each season, the episode where something horrible will definitely happen. When you get to it, you find yourself more moved and shocked by a cartoon horse than you've ever been in your life.
I guess my question is, do you think it's too late for me?
What?
I mean, am I just doomed to be the person that I am? The person in that book? I mean, it's not too late for me, is it? It's not too late. Diane, I need you to tell me that it's not too late.
Bojack,
I need you to tell me that I'm a good person. I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and self-destructive, but underneath all that, deep down, I'm a good person, and I need you to tell me that I'm good. Diane, tell me, please, Diane, tell me that I'm good.
Hey, aren't you the horse from horsing around?
One of the most beautiful things about the show is the complex way in which it depicts dysfunctional families. Because in most cases in Hollywood, they just dumb it down. The abusive parent is just plain evil. But Bojack's parents were not evil. We get to see their past, especially Bojack's mom, who had a bigger impact on him. Now, this video is not really about Bojack Horseman, so I won't get into the details, and I would suggest you watch the show. But while at first we only see things from Bojack's perspective, and from that perspective his mother is an emotionally abusive and neglective mother who earned her son's resentment, when they show us her perspective in one of the most heartbreaking, intelligent and powerful episodes ever produced for TV, episode 2 of season 4, we realize that she also carries a lot of horrible trauma. That she is flawed because of the things that she herself endured. That her coldness and mean streak are actually defenses put up by a terrified and traumatized little girl. And honestly, that's the most thought-provoking and realistic way of portraying an abusive parent I've ever seen. And what we get here is that the antagonist of the show, or even Bojack's own life, is not his mother, but trauma itself. And the way that those ripples go through generations, it's like poisoning through the generations. Now, that doesn't mean that the pain people inflict on their children is less real or less traumatic for the child, but it does help to understand what is really going on and therefore what is the correct way of stopping the cycle. You have to rebel against your own psychology. You have to view the world from other people's point of view. That's the only way not to pass on the trauma and start another cycle. And that is exactly what I think the character called Avi is thinking in the newest show by Raphael Bob Waksberg, which is called Long Story Short. In this new series, we follow the lives of members of one American Jewish family throughout different periods of time. And I would say that this has led to that thing is again the main theme of the show. Bob Waksberg is once again exploring not just what people are like, but why they are like that. Where is it all coming from? I love his attitude, by the way. He seems to embrace a very simple truth that many people, including myself, have a problem embracing, and that is that no one views themselves as the villain in their own life. We are all complex people with histories, and the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves always paints us as the good guys. Even when we do some things that have objectively a bad impact on people, we still tell ourselves the same story. That is a profound realization, and one that is difficult to maintain and to rebel against. Am I the good guy in every situation in my life? No, I am not. I'm not a saint. I have done things out of anger, out of spite, out of fear, just like everyone else. In a very interesting episode, this is portrayed in the show with the character of Kendra, an African American born into a, at the very least, culturally Christian family, who actually pretends to be Jewish at work just to get an excuse for being out for religious reasons, and then falls in love with Judaism and converts. Specifically, she falls in love with Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, when she backstabs a coworker who was kind to her as a child, and she does so just to get a promotion at work. And then, emotionally distraught by that, she finds herself in synagogue during a Yom Kippur prayer.
I didn't know you still worked here all this time. You have no idea what that meant to me. For the first time in my life, somebody saw me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. But, unfortunately, it's company policy that costumed characters cannot remove any part of their costume while on the floor.
What? But
So you're fired. Effective immediately.
No.
I'm so sorry. I don't make the rules.
You don't have to do this.
It's gonna be okay. You'll be okay.
I won't be okay. You don't have to do this.
These are the prayers of confession. We're saying how we've sinned. We have trespassed. We have betrayed.
I have trespassed. I have betrayed.
We have deceived. We have mocked.
I have deceived. I've mocked.
No, sweetie. We have.
We.
And that's really the point of it. The show asks what it means to be Jewish. And we see many different answers to it. The mother of the family gives her hilariously specific answer.
Naomi, there's no one right way to be Jewish.
But there is a progressive, egalitarian, conservative Judaism with an emphasis on ritual and community over faith and blind practice. That's literally the only way it makes sense. I figured it out. And I gave it to my children because I love them, but they reject it because they want to reject me.
Mom, not everything is about you.
That is the meanest thing you could possibly say to me.
Yoshi, the youngest son, he eventually drifts into Orthodox Judaism.
I have felt lost for so long, and I don't feel lost anymore. If I have a question about what to do or how to be, I have a place to look for answers, and I can ask the rabbi.
Why would you need a rabbi? That's what a mother is for.
The sister Shira and their partner, who we already met, Kendra, they seem to come down very close to what the mother believed in, perhaps a little more modern form of cultural reform version of Judaism.
I don't understand why you're so upset. Would you rather I be like Avi, not Jewish at all?
No, of course, I don't want you to be like Avi.
Hey, you know it happened the same way for me. Dipped my toe into Jewish and fell in love with it.
Sure, but you converted to normal people Jewish, not like the weird Jews like Yoshi.
They're not weird.
And then we have Avi, which many view as the main character. And Avi rejects religion as a whole, but when it comes to Judaism, it's not the religion itself that he rejects. And that's something that Gentiles don't seem to get, and I say that because I viewed a few reviews by Gentiles and people comparing Avi not wanting to participate in the religious ceremonies to someone who doesn't want to go to church. And that is a misunderstanding of the depth that we are talking about, of what is really going on. You can see what's going on with this beautiful flashback of his childhood, where he's trying to introduce an RPG board game to his family, and they are not interested at all. But what really ends it is when he tells them that it's a game from Europe. And this happens.
What kind of game is this even?
It's sophisticated. It's European.
What part of Europe?
I think the middle part of it. Germany.
They haven't done enough? We have to now play this sick game?
And later, well, earlier in the show, but later in the timeline, the show kind of mixes up the timelines, I guess, to make it more interesting. Anyway, later in his life, he actually articulates his disdain as an adult.
Right?
You're doing Christmas with Jen's parents. You're calling Judaism nonsense.
Okay, well, excuse me, but it was suffocating. We had to learn another language, only be with people like us, eat fish that looks like a brain, be afraid all the time.
I know.
All of those stories about the Holocaust, the Inquisition, Masada. Learning everyone hates you and wants to kill you doesn't exactly make for a well-adjusted person.
Okay, but
and
it's true.
It's not even true. Most people aren't even thinking about us.
Rude.
So we're just gonna keep telling these stories, praying to a God we don't believe in, and staying in on Friday nights while everyone else is out having sex and eating shrimp?
Who was doing that?
I don't know. I was busy ripping challah.
Okay, being Jewish is a lot of absurd.
Yeah, and you expect me to put all that on my wife and daughter? They're free. Why would I give them that?
And I get it, because here's the thing. For a long time in my life, I was Avi. Perhaps not as extreme as he is, because as some of you may know, I did study Jewish studies in university, and I was always into Jewish history and all that. But maybe that actually makes me more extreme than him. Because while doing all of that, while I was exposed to the culture, I was also very vocal and proud about not celebrating any of the Jewish holidays. And living in Israel, let me tell you, that's not a very common or accepted point of view. But I was adamant that I do not need the ceremonies. And it came, like in Avi's case, from a deep wish to be assimilated into the West. Because I thought that the ceremonies make us look weird. Primitive even. And more so, I thought that there's no problem with us being Jewish as long as we are not being weird about it. An attitude that I think many Jews in diaspora will identify with. See, for me, being Jewish was just a physical truth. And I don't mean wondering what the hell happened to the top half of my dick. I mean, it's an ethnical truth. I was born to a Jewish family. On my mother's side, we are, well, Israelis before there was an Israel. With my grandmother born in Jerusalem under the British Mandate, and her father born in Jerusalem under the Ottoman Empire. And beyond that, we believe that the family comes from Sephardic Jews. And on my father's side, we are Ashkenazi Jews from Germany, and before that from Austria. I took the DNA test when I was living in the UK, and it came back Ashkenazi Jew. Which, by the way, money well spent. With part Sephardic Jew, and genetic markers that are found in Middle Easterners, but not found in native Europeans, which is how they know to separate Ashkenazi Jews and Europeans, by the way. In short, it's Jews all the way down to the bottom. So for me, it's just an ethnic, genetic truth. Some people are Japanese, some people are Arabs. I'm Jewish. And then there was the cultural thing, of course. I speak Hebrew, I grew up on Hebrew traditions, I have a Hebrew point of reference to stuff. And that's what it was for me, and that's it. If you want to add the religion into it as well, good for you, but I didn't care for it very much. And when I moved to the UK 8 years ago, I was being Avi through and through. I was under the delusion that antisemitism is a thing of the past in the West, and that you can just go there and be yourself without the baggage. You can just be like, yeah, I come from a Jewish background, but you know, I like geek culture and musical theater and horror movies, and I'm a programmer and a frustrated musician. That's who I am. I'm all of those things that have nothing to do with my ethnic background. It's like I remember watching this guy on YouTube a few years back doing videos on Lord of the Rings lore. Great videos that I really enjoyed. And the guy just happened to be black. And there were at least some comments on almost every video saying how the commenter didn't know black people were into Lord of the Rings. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? The books didn't come with a label that says you have to have not more than this amount of melanin in order to enjoy. I myself released an album a few years back called Damage, which is like a concept album. It tells a story of a guy that has brain injury and ends up being a religious serial killer. And I didn't make my characters Jewish, and it doesn't happen in Israel. It didn't feel related to anything there. I lived at the time in London when I wrote it. So my main character is called Billy Gray, and the story takes place in London, or at least in a western city of some kind. It was just my surroundings at the time, and it fitted the narrative. My point is, you don't have to be a specific ethnic background to enjoy a work of art, and you don't even have to make your own art solely about your own culture, especially if you want to assimilate. And I was very much trying to the assimilationist path. And to me, it was never even in contradiction to Zionism, by the way, because Zionism is simply Jewish self-determination. It's just the belief that Jews have the right for independence in their homeland. It doesn't mean that we need to be separatists. I mean, if Scotland wins their independence tomorrow, does that mean that Scottish people can't live outside of Scotland and interact with non-Scottish things? Of course not. But Avi feels that is not the case for Jews, because he doesn't know what to do with all that baggage that comes from being Jewish. All of those horrific stories about pogroms and persecutions and the Holocaust. He feels this pressure to separate from the world that he wants to be a part of. And I get it completely. I think most Israelis get it completely. We celebrate New Year's in Israel. Why? It's not our New Year. We have the Jewish calendar, and Rosh Hashanah is our New Year. Why do we celebrate Christian New Year? Why do we even use that calendar? Because we want to be part of the world. We want to be accepted. We want to participate in the major events and do gaming and whatever it is that the outside world does. In a way, we've all become assimilationists, except for the very religious and conservatives, but they are a minority both in Israel and in the Jewish world itself. And I was very different 8 years ago. I was, like I said, very much Avi, including the fact that he had a child with a Gentile, which means that his daughter is not Jewish by Jewish law. And I said something very similar when I moved to the UK. I said, if I meet someone and we have kids, I'm not raising them Jewish. Why? Because it's a burden. Because it singles them out. Because it puts a target on their backs. It's better for them to be one of a million than one in a million. And yeah, that was instilled in me by our troubled history, by my complex relationship with my fellow Jews and my country and the world I wanted to be a part of. The difference between me and Avi is that when I moved to the UK and saw the world I wanted so desperately to be a part of, I was unimpressed. I was disillusioned. I discovered the same issues exist everywhere. I discovered stupidity exists everywhere. And I discovered that the world still had many, many people who do not want me there, who do not view me as an equal because of my ethnic background. I've talked about it before, so I won't go into many details here, but let's just say that after about 3 or 4 years in the UK, I've noticed enough anti-Semitism, casual anti-Semitism, that I started looking into it. That I realized something was going on, and I started looking into it and writing about it. But I still thought it was manageable. After the 7th of October, I was forced to face the truth. It's not. And it's not just a minority. And it's not just the UK. It's institutionalized into the West. It's still the common perception. It's still baked into the culture. If I wanted to truly assimilate, I needed to not just pretend I am someone I'm not, make myself a different name, and invent a different background story. I would also need to hate Jews, to follow blood libel, to believe that Jews should not be allowed independence, to deny them their history, and to believe that it's completely fine to call from the river to the sea, which is a call for a second Holocaust, for murdering or displacing the 8 million Jews who live in Israel right now. And this is where me and Avi are now completely separated. Because it's funny, he touches this understanding with a needle, but it doesn't follow through. At the end of the show, his daughter, who is not Jewish as I said, wants to have a bat mitzvah. But she's not sure that she's Jewish enough. She's afraid that it would be cultural appropriation. And he tells her this.
But I'm not really Jewish, right? I'm a loophole.
In certain contexts, but I don't think there's any one thing that makes you Jewish or not Jewish. You get stomach aches like a Jew. You say ungapachka. If you want a bat mitzvah...
You don't think it's like cultural appropriation?
Look, if Adolf Hitler saw you, I don't think he'd be doing the math on technically how halachically Jewish you are. He'd throw you in the oven with the rest of us.
I mean, I guess.
So why shouldn't you get the fun stuff, too? I go by Hitler rules. If you're Jewish enough for Hitler, you're Jewish enough for me.
Now, I agree with him completely. I just take it to what I think is the correct conclusion. For them, you will always be a Jew. It doesn't matter that you don't follow the ceremonies or celebrate the holidays or make yourself a bodysuit made of ham and bacon, which sounds both delicious and disgusting at the same time. It doesn't matter. For them, you will always be Jewish. And that would always make you matter less. Until there's a true cultural shift in the West, you will not assimilate. And the delusion of assimilation that American Jews have right now is just that. A delusion based on an illusion. Because it is the most successful case of assimilation in our history. And yet, if you Google it, you will find many articles in Western media lamenting about how evil Jews are still fighting in Gaza and Lebanon during Ramadan. Like we should show respect to the enemy by ceasing fire during the holidays. Well, now we just celebrated Passover, a very important Jewish holiday, much more than Hanukkah, which only gets the perception that it's important because it happens around Christmas. And during Passover, Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon increased the ballistic missiles and rockets they fired at the civilian population in Israel, specifically to make sure they hit as many civilians as possible who are with families or on their way to Seder meals. And you won't find one fucking Western media outlet even mentioning it. Not one outside of Jewish media. The 7th of October was during Simchat Torah, maybe the second most important date on the Jewish calendar. And the West didn't care. Most people don't even know that because it is never mentioned. You see what I mean? You see how we matter less? In US universities, they had demonstrations where a mob of hundreds or thousands of people were yelling at a small group of Jewish students, "We're many, you're few, we're coming for you." Jews testified that they were bullied, that they were even physically assaulted and physically kept out of the libraries so they couldn't study properly. And yet Stephen Colbert called it legitimate protests. Change Jew with any other minority. Do you think he still calls it legitimate protest? No one in the mainstream media or any of those entertainers said anything about that. In New York, they elected an Islamist who refused to condemn the slogan "Globalize the Intifada," which is a call for violence against Jews worldwide, and gave money to organizations associated with Hamas, and whose wife celebrated the 7th of October on social media and shared anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. All behavior that, if aimed at any other minority, would have not just stopped him from being mayor, it would end his political career right there. But he was embraced by all of them. All of the establishment, the entertainers, hell, even some misguided Jews. So I'm sorry, Avi, or should I say, Rafael. You don't matter. You are not one of them. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how much you remove yourself from your roots or your culture. It even doesn't matter if you marry a Gentile and raise kids outside of Judaism. They will never see you as one of them. Some will be okay as long as you bow down, fall in line, and do and think as told. Others, the Hitler kind, won't even care if you do that, because it's an ethnical issue to them. So in the end, my personal view is that assimilation with the West, true one, can never happen the way the West is right now. It can only happen if we change two things: the anti-Semitism that is embedded into Western culture and our own attitude. Because some of it is definitely our fault. We tend to encourage it, to invite it, not by antagonizing anyone, but by lowering our heads, by apologizing and accepting their narratives about us and saying, oh, we're sorry, but we're the good Jews, please accept us. That doesn't make people want to respect you, and no one wants to accept someone that they don't respect. But maybe in a way, Raphael is on his way to realize that, because he did make a show that is unapologetic Jewish. He doesn't pull punches, he doesn't explain everything or sugarcoat it. He uses Jewish terms without even telling the audience what they mean. Hell, some of the Yiddish jokes even went over my head. My family is not Eastern European, so we don't speak Yiddish. I had to Google what a schnook is. So that's good. But you also notice that Israel and Zionism are not mentioned at all. And I get why. Raphael himself said why in interviews. They didn't want that to become the headline, because no matter what they would say or how it would be presented, it would end up being a talking point for people who never even watched the show. So I get why he would do that. But on the other hand, you bowed your head again. You begged people to listen and was willing to cut out something that we both know is insanely significant in Jewish life. And that there are serious, hard conversations in that family that probably had significant consequences on their relationship. But that part of Jewish life was cut out of it. And why? Because, God forbid, you'll have a Jew saying on Netflix that Jews have the right to defend themselves, or that the media is lying and spreading blood libel, or that maybe invading us and burning Jewish children for the crime of being Jewish should have consequences. Because that's the real reason for the anti-Israeli movement. The people in those hate marches and online, what they really want is to go back to the good old days when you can commit any kind of atrocity against Jews and have no consequences. That's the real reason. And to have that exposed on Netflix, that won't do. In the end, the only way to change the attitude in the West is to learn from the black community. I keep saying that. Fearless, constant attack, pushback. Not backing down, not apologizing, not begging to be accepted, demanding it. It's like trauma is depicted in Bojack Horseman. You need to understand the reasons for it, and then you have to rebel. You have to decide not to repeat the behavior of the previous generations, to go on a different path. If Jews want assimilation to become a real possibility, their attitude has to change from, I'm sorry, Mr. Gentile, please accept me, to, we are here. Accept our existence or expect our resistance.